We shall begin this evening's recollection and the talk with a prayer which will be led by Roshan.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Welcome, Holy Spirit. We are in your presence. Fill us with your power. Live inside of me. Welcome, Holy Spirit. We are in your presence. Fill us with your power. Live inside of me. You're the living water, never dying fountain. Comforter and counselor, take complete control. Welcome, Holy Spirit. We are in your presence. Fill us with your power. Live inside of me.
Let me briefly introduce Father Edward Mudosari, who will give us the opening talk today, and he will speak on conversion in the context of the upcoming Ignatian year and in the context of Lent. I'm very happy to welcome Father Edward. Actually, he just handed over his responsibility as rector of the Nobili yesterday, and he was looking forward to some rest. But I said, let me catch him before he leaves Pune, and he was gracious enough to accept my invitation. But he's really tired, as he was just narrating to me this evening. He hasn't had rest, a real rest, for the last 17 years. He's been going on from one responsibility to the next, provincial, then POSA, and so on. Something or the other which has kept him on his toes, and now these last few years as rector of the Nobili. So we thank you very much, Edward, for accepting our invitation. This will be our first recollection in the whole series of recollections which our provincial wanted us to have monthly, so that we could celebrate this Ignatian year in a proper way.
So, good evening to all of you. Familiar faces. As Kenny said, last night, only 9:30, I went back to the room after handing over, and we had a staff, campus staff dinner. PG block couldn't come because there is somebody with COVID there, so it is shut down at the moment. So papal staff and ourselves. So I accepted as soon as Kenny asked, because some way I feel very close to Pune. Though it's the first time I get to Pune as a rector, and I not studied here, only as provincial I have visited. What happened yesterday during the Mass, I was supposed to preach and then read the decree and then celebrate with the new rector. I have never been tearful any time in my life as far as I can remember. But yesterday when I was thanking the community, I broke down. I couldn't really say anything. The reason for that is I felt the people in not just in Nobili, but all over Pune are very loving people. And I feel extremely grateful in my heart for being here in Pune for 6 years. And now, in this time of uncertainty, I am going back to the province. Father Kurian, who was in NBSC just last year, he went back to start a new ministry. He was appointed Dean of Junrate. Within 2 months, he got a pneumonia. Now it has gone into 4th stage cancer. And my own friends, several have passed away in the last 6 months in the province, those who are of my age, much below my age also. So I am just looking at all this. God has kept me alive. Let me use my remaining time usefully in the service of God. And that is what made me say, nowadays, don't make any choices, likes and dislikes. God brings something, accept it and try to do your best. So this is my attitude at the moment for this particular thing. So, as I said in the beginning, it's not a lecture, but I am trying to bring something out of this Ignition year, which has been declared by Father General. And most of you might have read this letter, but I am only taking a few points from which I shall share with you. We know that the year begins on the 20th of May this year till 31st of July next year. The importance of 20th of May for the society is that is the year Ignatius was hit by the cannonball, and he had a very long convalescence at Loyola, and that turned out to be a very graceful moment for Ignatius. He went through a very deep conversion. He was able to reflect on the life he was living, and he saw that that sort of life was not going to be possible, and he was almost despairing when he started reading the life of Christ and the life of saints. He realized there is another life possible, a new life possible. And that is where the grace of God hits St. Ignatius when he was wounded. I also felt, Father General said, the whole society must take this opportunity to join St. Ignatius in reflecting over the life we have been living and the life that is possible in the coming days. But I felt another thing. In fact, the whole world is hit by the corona, and the Society of Jesus too. And Nobili, for 1 year, we couldn't bring the students back. JDV is shut down, and everything looks very uncertain. And I have been, as rector, over and over again, speaking to the staff at Recreation and others. Isn't there a message in this? God shut down everything, the freedom, the luxury, the pleasures we were enjoying, everything had to come to a standstill, saying, have a second look at your life and your lifestyle, and have a second look at the way in which you have organized the world, way in which the human society is functioning these days. Rich, poor, migrants, people at the periphery, people dying, and what the Trinity saw in the contemplation of incarnation. If you look around, something similar is happening. And when that scene hit the Holy Trinity, what normally when we see something terrible like that, we say, let's get on with it, let's destroy all this thing and start anew. Instead of that, the Holy Trinity felt compassion. Compassion for this suffering humanity, where a lot of innocents were also there suffering. And that is where, in order to save them, he needed to come down, and he looked around and found Mary, a teenage, unlikely personality who wouldn't be accepted by their society or religion to come out to be the mother of someone without even getting married. So God has his own way of doing, and in this case, the Corona days, it's a challenge I place for everyone here. If we simply make small adjustments and try to move on next year and hoping next year will be different, that is not what God is asking us. A radical revamping of ourselves, education, politics, economics, human relationship, family life, worship, content of our formation has to be something different. So this is why this Ignatian year can be very fruitful year for the Society of Jesus, because Society of Jesus was celebrating so many celebrations of the higher education, high school education, and social apostate, this, that, and other, all sorts of jubilees everybody is celebrating. God says, stop all that. Stop, look and proceed. Are you moving in the right direction? Is the world moving in the right direction? Why all this destruction of the common home of which he created so beautifully? Why so many people have to be starving and dying, and so many conflicts are coming because of greed and so on? And we are onlookers, bystanders, letting this go. And when one of ours was hit, Stan Swami, the Jesuits are making a lot of noise. But how many thousands are in the jails in India? So many trafficked women and migrants and unjust bonded laborers are all over the place. They didn't move us. But when it came home, we were moved. So this is why it is very important that this Ignatian year is taken well. Then General says, just as Ignatius, when he arrived in Manresa with the desire to go to Jerusalem, a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, he makes a spiritual journey there. And that spiritual journey, he says, which he made, is a spiritual journey which every human being can go through. And it is a spiritual journey for us too. And from that we can learn. And this spiritual journey brought Ignatius out of it with a new vision. So he began to see all things new, it is said in the autobiography. Will this be the result of our spiritual journey during Lent or during Ignatian year? Will we see with a new eye of Jesus, eyes of Jesus? Will we look at everything? Even the things we are doing well need to be looked at in a different way. So it is the time for opportune time for renewal by the Lord himself. The spiritual exercises begins, which he began to compose, became the most important fruits of his continuing conversion, Ignatius' conversion. So it is a story of conversion. It's a process. It's a pedagogy of conversion, spiritual exercise. That is our legacy, but which we have forgotten. After doing it in the novitiate, then it is nobody. Maybe in tertiary we ask, please bring the spiritual exercise. What is that book? We can ask. So, so unfamiliar we have become with our sources, the constitutions and all that. Those are the books which are gathering dust in every house. So that is the pathway to God. And that is why he said, it shows the way to God. This we have to recapture, because we are the one to carry this legacy forward, and in this world to bring about newness and change and renewal. We need to take the people we ourselves must be renewed. The response to this from the society was when Arturo Sosa wanted the whole society to discern what will be the apostolic priorities. And it took 2 years for that to concretize and come out with the document called Universal Apostolic Preferences. And that was submitted to the Pope for his approval and consent. And the Pope said, the society has gone through a real discernment, process of discernment, and this discernment, the first preference, which is spiritual, sharing spiritual exercises, showing the way to God, is the most fundamental of the four, without which all the other things will be social work or NGO operation. All those activities should have the foundation, spiritual attitudes underlying. And this is where the Jesuits have missed a lot, I feel. I myself, include myself in that. We have missed the fact that what we do, even if it looks like the things which others are doing, we don't do it for the same reasons. Our reasons come from the depth of our experience of God, His love, and His Son's invitation to mission. That is what is moving us, not anything else. So this is important for us. So Pope Francis said, it is fundamental, and without which whatever you do is not going to be of use. So for the remaining time, what I'm trying to say are the points of this. Briefly glance over the spiritual journey of St. Ignatius. Then the second point will be the instrument that brought about change in St. Ignatius, the transformative elements in the spiritual exercises, and transformation-centered actions. So this is the 4 things I want to touch upon. Okay. When Ignatius was converted, or when he had this experience of wanting to seek God, search for God, know God, he did not transform in his person. He remained a worldly person with all his upbringing still within him. How do we know that? You know that he was going for the pilgrimage to Montserrat. When the Moor joined him along the way, they had a conversation that it turned out to be an argument about Our Lady's virginity. And because he didn't agree, he was feeling angrier and angrier as we were going along. And he was having the impulse to stab it. Okay. And this is where the natural man was coming out, not the supernatural, the spiritual Ignatius. So that had to change. So we hear in the writings of Lonergan that there are 3 conversions that we all need to go through. He speaks in this term: intellectual conversion, moral conversion, and religious conversion. Then he says, though this is the order, but religious conversion is most common. A person being affected by God, affected by some supernatural experience, which leads him want to live a good life, want to give up things which are ungodly, unloving, worldly things. And then he also tries to discover truth. So this is the reverse that normally happens to most of us. We know that's St. Ignatius' case. He had the religious experience that did not take away the human side which needed transformation. And this is the situation of Jesuits. In many cases, we have had the religious experience in the long retreat or during the novitiate and maybe afterwards. But we see in the Jesuits, whatever evils we can find in the world are also found. Whatever character defects are found outside are found also in the Jesuits. So there is a question some new convert asked, why after conversion I am still doing the wrong things? Then a pastor explaining about that, he said, St. Paul says, be transformed. What does he say? Yeah. Anyway, what Paul says is, be transformed. Don't conform yourself to the world, but be transformed by the Word of God, by the Spirit. Now, what he means to say is, we are living in conformity with the world. What does that mean? We just are born in a place, we grow up in a place, pick up from our family, friends, neighborhood, the values, attitudes, and so on, that become quite natural to us. That become very natural to us. And then we have the conversion. It is not a transformation. It is almost like an add-on. They are going in parallel. St. Paul says, I want to do the things, I want to do good things, but I end up doing the wrong things. So this is the conflict everybody is going through, because some way this reconciliation or the transformation doesn't take place. And that is where spiritual exercises, if you really exercise that, put that into practice, should transform us. It is a way of transformation. It will change us, change our thinking, change our way of acting. It will change our way of interacting or relationship with one another and with God. So in Ignatius' case, there was first the external pilgrimage. He went from Loyola to Montserrat, Manresa, Jerusalem, Alcala, Salamanca, Paris, Venice, and Rome. That is, geographically was moving from place to place. There was also an interior pilgrimage that was taking place. Autobiography number 1 says, up to the age of 26, he was a man given to follies of the world. What he enjoyed most was exercising arms and having a great and foolish desire to win fame. Then in autobiography number 99, he said, that is towards the end of it, mature years, he's saying, rather he had grown in devotion. He found ease in finding God now more than ever in his whole life. Every time, any hour, when he wished to find God, he found him. You see, the whole journey has taken place in between time. So this is the movement from self-centered and ego-centered Ignatius to God-centered, the other side, Ignatius. This is the journey that all of us have to be. And often we find the ego is so strong. So that has to be brought under control. Because Ignatius says in the spiritual exercise, we must deal with self-will, self-love, and self-interest. He knows what it means because he lived that. And if we want to examine ourselves, we know that is one of the toughest things that we have to face ourselves in our life. Then Luis Gonzalez, the camera who wrote down the autobiography, was asked, where did Ignatius get all this? Then he said it is from the spiritual exercises. And that is what Father General also mentioned. he worked on himself. And he said he wanted to conquer all sorts of demons within him. Then he also started off alone from Loyola to Manresa, a life of a penitent. Then from Manresa to Jerusalem, helping others, a lay apostle. Then from Holy Land to Paris, when he makes friends. See, you see his life is becoming more and more broader, his outlook, priestly apostolate to serve others, and from Paris to Rome to serve Christ anywhere in the world. So his person from the little village of Loyola is now grown and broadened his vision to this. Sometimes I wonder, when many Jesuits say, I want to be in the province, so I don't want to go out of the province. I love my people, I need to work for the people. I think we are missing the point. The Lord wants us to get out. The fishermen from Galilee could be going all the way to the different parts of the world and evangelize, then all of us. And somebody else will come and evangelize our people. But if Lord calls, we have to do. And Pune has been sending people like Jadhav and all to Rome to evangelize the Romans. Okay, so anyway, we need to have that attitude. So that is also a sign of our growth. If we don't see that in us, we become closed up, cliquish, groupish, and moving only in circles which I like or I dislike. Then we have not addressed those demons within us. Now, what are the transformative elements in the spiritual exercises? The first and foremost, a God-centered life in principle and foundation. You say, we know that. What does it mean for us here, God-centered life? Do we recognize that God has blessed us infinitely, each one of us? First of all, we are healthy, we are here, we are alive when all the world is struggling. We have the security of a life, our breakfast, lunch and supper are readily available. We have a vocation, precious vocation. We have ministries or studies which we can carry out. We have friends, not only here, all over the world, people are in contact with us. And what all things God has done through each one of us. We don't compare each other's work, but God has done wonderful things. For example, Pune province, what it is today, is not just because of the few stalwarts we speak about. Every person who was in the province has been contributing and now also contributing. That is the work of God. That is the way God brings about the transformation, salvation of the world and of ourselves. If we don't recognize that, we will not. So our life should be one of gratitude. That's the meaning of principle and foundation, is that every morning we should get up and say, thank you, Lord. Previously, I might have had a fight with someone. Thank you, Lord. Through that, God may be teaching us a lot of things. Maybe patient, maybe forbearance, maybe ability to forgive, maybe to love one's enemy, maybe to correct myself. There's so many things can happen instead of getting focused on one thing, one track mind, then we will not go. Principle and foundation broadens our, whatever we do is part of the mega plan, the big plan of God. Within that is where what we are doing. Even the little thing, the one who set up this one who brought water for me, all these people are working the salvation of humanity. It's not simply a servant job. We are not servants of Jesus. We are collaborators. We are working with Jesus. Ne cum laborare. That is the word, the spiritual exercise. To work with the Lord, with me. Jesus, that is the invitation. So whatever we do can sanctify us, sanctify the world, sanctify our mission. This awareness should be in us. Then if we have that awareness, then I will ask myself, am I really returning these gifts in a productive, creative, and effective way, sharing it, or because of my inordinate attachments to these gifts, or because of my disordered affections, I am squandering it, like the prodigal son and others. This is also a problem that we need to address. If we don't pay attention to that, maybe externally we are doing many things, we are squandering, we are not, or we are like the servant who went and dug and buried the talent and came back and gave the same thing. That also could be the way in which we may be acting. So, this awareness will make us seek the margins, something more for God. The God who loves me, what more can I do for him? What more can I give him? What more can I share with my brothers and sisters? In what situation will I enter and show the love of God? So in this way, we can be, that is a transformative element if we have experienced this in our life. So, but the self-centered vision is egoistic, and the sign of that is pride. Segregation, the spiritual exercise, speaks about pride. Pride is basically trying to show, I am God. Alcoholic Anonymous, there is a book which is written by one of the person who recovered or recovering person he read, not God. When you have a good drink, they feel like God. And they can fight anyone. Even if he's a puny little fellow, he'll take on anyone. So that is what is making him drink. Because without drink, he cannot do that. Without some addiction, attachment, they cannot do the wrong things. So realizing the sinfulness, humility is the foundation on which God builds, and that is the only foundation on which we can build. And when that ego is strong, I want the world to run according to my wishes, my likes and dislikes. What I say, everybody should accept. What I don't like, others should also dislike. And if anybody challenges me, he is wrong. I am always right. This is the sort of attitudes that we develop. And that is the root of many conflicts. Ego. Ego is the one which interferes in all the conflict. There's nothing, no conflict is possible if ego is not there. But we can have mature interaction, we can resolve the conflicts and others. Ego stands in the way of conflict. And our suffering is also not because of truth or reality. We suffer because of illusion of hurting my real self, but in fact, my ego. What am I angry about? Because he called me this. He didn't respect me. He didn't give me that position, this position. Who are you? The other day, reading something, a Buddhist monk, they speak, right? One of the training they are being given is dead body of somebody. You sit there and meditate until that rots and stings and disintegrates. You sit there. Then you say, this is me. Who are this great? This is a great fellow, but this is what he turns out to be. And he will become part of the whole universe into atoms and so on. And what do I say? Look, I am so great. And look, we are like a flame of the candle. We just blow and that's gone. So don't make much of us. I want that humility. Then you discover your true dignity of being God. Your dignity, your value, your worth is foundation because you are the image of God, you are the son or daughter of God, and that is what gives you, not what you do, how you look, what caste you are, what language you are, whether you're white or black or yellow, these things will not matter. So this is the freedom of children of God. That freedom when we have, that is when we are free, we can be freely missioned anywhere. Then Ignatius' God is a laboring God, a God who labors in the world, in the creation, because he created things beautiful and he makes them grow, develop, and become more beautiful. So this should be our attitude. We got a group of boys in the class who are troublesome. Dismiss them will be the first thought. But also, you have to see something beautiful in them, something through which we should be able to. Maybe I have no time, I don't have the ability, but they are not bad. Means that's the same way we also reach out, help that person to discover really what that person, that he has a dignity, he has a worth that will change the person. But as long as we treat them like dirt, they will also throw dirt back at us. So, this laboring God goes out to the suffering humanity. And this must also inspire us to go to the peripheries, to those migrants, those trafficked women, those youth who are directionless. All this will be part of interiorizing our attitude with regard to the creatures. Then Ignatius said, all the good things descends from above. I read Kajju, that Markandeya Kajju's article today about those nuns who were heckled in the train. He has written in Madras India, has reported it maybe in some other print or some other print. He says, you must learn from the nuns how to serve, how to be selfless, reaching out to the people rather than harassing them. I see. Now, he's saying the nuns, he has come in contact with, he was in Allahabad and different places. Ajay, he said, during admission time, during different occasion, goons and others, politicians go and trouble them, force them to take students who are not fit and so on. And he used to send a magistrate to help them out and all that he said. But the point is that those two nuns and two postulants are now, of course, though they are using it for political purposes in Kerala, but they are the witness of the goodness of Christ's disciples. This is what we are meant to be. In this world, people should see us and say, I can experience the love of God here. I become the incarnation of God's love among the people. So in this way, that experience, if you go through the spiritual exercise, eventually finding God in everything and becoming the goodness of God here on earth. With our talents, abilities, and our human self, we can be the presence of God's love in this world where people are thirsting for love, looking for someone to love. I think that this is 6:45 already. Okay.
By that, about 5 minutes.
5 minutes I went. Maybe the final point I want to make is that we must be men of discernment. I don't know whether I read today or something. The corona has, brought to light the consumerist way of living and the luxurious way of living and all sorts of entertainments or digital compulsions which people go through, all these things to the fore. Now people have to stay in the family and they have to be careful what they do, what they don't do, and so on and so forth. And even for us religious, when we are now thinking, we do not just act on impulses, it takes some time to reflect, evaluate, and discern. So discernment must be the way in which we must proceed in the future, and it is very important in the new world. If you want to rebuild the new world, discernment is crucial because the options are so many. Discernment means give time for possibilities to emerge, ability to sift and to examine, to evaluate, and to see whether they are in consonance with God and His plan for us. And then only we make the decision. So this for today, what will be the transformative sort of actions that we should take when we are now going into the English year? Some suggestions which came during the talk of Josie Lobo. He said, we need to accept the reality of our country, a country of different religions, multicultural, and different people of different backgrounds and so on. So we need to be able to dialogue with different people, intercultural, interreligious, intercaste, whatever we should be people of dialogue, not people who are going out there to convert and that sort of wrong ideas. People who can dialogue. Then respect the cultures and the religions of people. You could start in secular, see, the spiritual exercises. The first week, what you call the principle and foundation, gives you enough material for a secular understanding of religious life, religion. And that gives you a lot of chance for us to present our vision to the modern world because it contains a very integrated understanding of things. People are lost, people don't know how to, what is the purpose of life. They go for short-term goals, and short-term goals are the ones which leads to addiction. Okay, when you're tense, okay, go for a film, and then after some time that wears out, then drink, then that wears out, then go for sex. This is the way in which people are running, going around in circles. But proper understanding of what will give meaning to one's life. So peace clubs, clubs for helping people, reaching out to migrants, these sort of various types of services can be made available. One of the conversions, other than personal and community conversion, first of all, we need to look at our lifestyle, personal as well as community. But institutional conversion is a point which is being brought by education. Now, to understand that, there's a little quote from Sobrino. Honest assessment of the situation, social analysis. Owning up the situation and collaborating with Christ in his mission for addressing that situation. St. Vincent's might have been running very well, and Bashan, and every place, parishes, and so on. Those institutions need conversion too. What will that mean is what you need to take into account the social situation in which you are placed, and you need to really see what are the areas where we need to do something. Not that we take over everything, at least something to reach out to the peripheries, people who are crying for help, or something has to be done. So institutional conversion is very important. We can't simply say that we are fine, we don't need any conversion. The retreat in daily life you can promote, and various other activities you can think about as you go along. And the final thing is, in the letter Father Arturo Sosa wrote, very seriously he has addressed the issue of the practicing of poverty in the society. Poverty today must be solidarity. And that solidarity, and there was a 4-day seminar online by the treasurers of the Korea, and what they have come out with, Father McLean has said, what, in summary, a Jesuit should keep in mind, what Ignatius asked is, don't live from fixed assets, live on alms or just remuneration. That is the way a judge, and his services is supposed to be gratuitous. That was changed in TC 32 by saying just remuneration you can take because of the changed conditions of the world. So just remuneration. But I know that Jesuits who don't accept certain people's invitation for the retreats or programs because they won't pay. They won't give the air ticket and all those things. So we need to have a second thought about these things. So this point has to be studied, and it needs to be studied by the province, and every province is asked to go into it very, very seriously, and General will be monitoring that. So you can read that in this letter and take it forward. So thank you very much for the
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now we have time for reflection for prayer. So I invite you to be on the chapel or take over or whatever. But I request you not to talk amongst yourselves, to keep them for a time when we meet at supper. And Father Edward is in room 20, which is the third room after the refectory. So he will sit down there for confession in case anyone wants to go. And I request Father Tony, will you be available? So that's the second room after the dining room. Father Tony will be in that room. So there are two people there. If you want to make a confession to somebody else, you're welcome to choose a person and go ahead. 7:30, the bell will ring. 7:35, we meet again over here for a mass as a province, those of us who are in the meeting, and then we'll go on to some part. Okay.